it's an honor to be here, and I think you have the toughest job, I think, in the state. I think anybody who's on a school board, Jay, being on a school board, it is so challenging right now to be in education. Every day you have more problems and you have less money and fewer solutions and fewer tools to really tackle it. So thank you for all you do for our kids. I know I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. Everything that I do, I think about her through her lens. I wanted to thank Sean & Shine Law Firm. I know James Hsu, unfortunately, couldn't be here. I thank Jennifer Sacro for being his substitute, his able stand-in. Thank you. I know another friend, James. James is running for our state assembly, so you should stand. You should stand. We're talking like, James owes a lot to Charlie and Kaz, and I think it's an example of what happens when a community invests in people, and really when you can start and really see that investment not just sort of take place, but really grow and fulfill into those things. That's so important that each of our communities have elected representatives, that we have representation, and that it's something that's so important and I think so sacred to, frankly, all of us. I just wanted to thank a lot of hosts. They're all here, so I'm not going to go through and read the whole list, but I just want to thank all the host committee members in particular for all your help in putting on this event. Really appreciate it. I know sort of like, people get phone calls and say, hey, why would I come out for the San Francisco assessor, unless I own property in San Francisco? And I just want to thank you for doing that, for coming out, because I know it means a lot to me. San Francisco's interesting, government is interesting right now. We are all facing very, very challenging times. In San Francisco, in the state, we have less money, we have the same amount of problems, and we're going through a very, very sort of a shift in really the economy in our financial system right now. And when I came into office 3.5 years ago, and Gary Townsend knows this from working with Rick Auerbach here in LA as the assessor, San Francisco really had one of the worst reputations in the state, maybe the worst reputation in the state. And what we came in to do was take a pledge of making sure that we could fix and show and demonstrate really that government could work. Because right now, every time we ask people for money, we ask property owners for money, we ask people for sales tax money, or any time we're talking about taxes or fees or anything, they go, hey, what does that money go to? What does it go to, and why should we trust you as people in government? And why should we believe that you really can, not just give a speech, not just kind of, serve some hors d'oeuvres, have some wine, that you could really do something. So in our first 3.5 years, we did that. We took on that challenge to say, hey, we can actually fix San Francisco. I came in with a report this big. I had a KPMG report, had 150 recommendations. And we just went down the list one by one, started implementing each and every single one of them. And it wasn't easy, because people anywhere don't like change. Change is hard. Our president sees that. It's easy to talk about change. It's really hard to actually do it. But if you can roll up your sleeves, you can really make it happen little by little. And we did that. We worked hand in hand with the line staff. No, people said, oh, the problem's the office. It's the workers. It's all the people who they're lazy. They don't work very hard. Well, we turned around the office, and I inherited 95% of staff. 95% of them are still there. A few people retired. But you can't turn around an office, even with all the same people, if you can give them clear vision, clear goals, clear direction. It's very simple. We had a backlog that lasted 5 years. That means some people who bought property waited 5 years till they got an assessment. That's money that's lost to our schools. It's money that's lost for buses, for public safety, for transportation. It's kind of insane. It's basically like the money's in the bank, but no one's moving it from one vault to the next. That's all it is. And just by doing that one thing, we were able to bring in $135 million of additional money. So above our budget. So that is money that half of that immediately goes to schools. So if you cared about kids, right?
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, exactly, winner, right? So if you care, it's like fine. You don't like some, the city getting the money, but if you care about kids, you want the teachers and the schools to get the money. That's where the money goes. And it's these types of things. People said, hey, you can't the system stuck. One of the things, yesterday was a great day because yesterday, for the last 3 days, I had a company put solar panels on my home. And it's something that my wife and I talked about 3-4 years ago. And we found out it's really expensive, it's very confusing, and there's a lot of red tape. So I think other people, they'd say, hey, you know what, I'm the assessor, I'm just going to do my little bit, focus on my bureaucratic job. And I said, hey, why don't we put together a task force? Why don't we bring people together? Why don't we bring community members, environmentalists, people who care about this stuff together and say, hey, maybe we can change something in San Francisco around solar. I kind of joke, in San Francisco, we have a lot of megawords, not a lot of megawatts. It's a solar joke. Sorry, it works better in a solar audience. We had 583 buildings with solar. And we said, what can we do to get to a goal of 10,000 roofs? Because that was the goal that Mayor Brown set, not even Mayor Newsom, but Mayor Brown set. So we sat around the table, and we did amazingly what a task force almost never does. We issued a very small report, and then, because we didn't want to care about the report, we wanted to just go do it. And we convinced the city to start the largest incentive program of its kind of any municipality in the country. And I said, if you're a property owner in San Francisco, you get an incentive if you put solar on your roof. So what happened? All of a sudden, we went from 583 buildings in San Francisco to now 1,400 buildings in 12 months. The program's been alive. And it just shows by bringing people together, by not just doing reports and actually fixing things, we can do it. People always complain about the permitting process. That's a common complaint, right? You get a city, oh, permitting, you can't. So that was a complaint around solar as well. And we said, well, what if we put all the permitting people in the room? Let's put the fire department in the room, planning department, building inspections in the room. Everybody had legitimate complaints. We threw them out on the table. We're able to have people talk about it and figure out solutions. So the fire department was concerned because they said, hey, you know what, if these solar panels get wet, we can't walk on them. We're going to slip and fall, and then we have to be able to walk on them, otherwise it's dangerous. We can't get onto the roof. Other issue is, hey, if the solar panels are on a roof and we can't stick an axe through them, then we can't open the roof up in case there's smoke and fire. So really legitimate things. They weren't being bureaucrats, they were doing their job. But then we just gave them, we had one of the installers give them some panels, they could take them home and realize that, hey, when they're wet, they could walk on them, and when they took an axe to it, they could puncture it so they could go through a roof. Really simple things. Just by bringing people together, you can actually fix things and reform them. Now, it's not easy. It takes work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of hand-holding, but it can be done. And I think too often, especially for a lot of us who've been doing this for many, many years, we get cynical. And we said, it's not worth it. It's not worth the time. Nothing will change. But things have to change. And I say that now more than ever. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter now. And when my parents immigrated here, like I look at a lot of you, I know a lot of your backgrounds. Many of you are either immigrants yourselves or children of immigrants. When we either came here or when our parents or our grandparents came here, they came here to offer us a better life. And they came here and they sacrificed for that. And I look at our generation, I look at California, and I look at the California I grew up in, and I look at San Francisco. And I don't think we're doing that for this generation. I don't think at this point, am going to offer my daughter a better life. Yeah, I think that's wrong. Yeah, I think we have to change that. Because right now, what we're doing is, if you look at the budget process, the state process, either locally, we're borrowing against their futures so that we can pay for today. And frankly, I'm just kind of tired. And I think that